Sal Capaccio is at owners' meetings live from West Palm Beach, and we'll bring him in. His appearance brought to you by Window Nation. Perfect fit for your home and wallet. Visit windownation.com as WGR's coverage of the NFL owners' meetings are brought to you by Window Nation. Hey, Sal, good morning.
Good morning, guys. How are you?
Do you have nice weather, Sal? Because it only rains here now, and I just want to hear that the sun exists still? Is it out?
Actually, yesterday was pretty overcast and rainy most of the day here, but today,
good.
I got to be honest with you guys. I just rolled up here at the Breakers, coming over to the media area, and there is not a cloud in the sky, and the palm trees are calm.
The birds in the background really irked me. I'm not going to lie.
You like that?
Hey, I heard birds today. Here, I heard birds, but they're complaining about the rain. All right, Sal, so we played the clip. We've got lots to get to. You had a chance to speak with Pete Gwelly of the Sabres and Bills COO, so we've got so much to catch up on, the Benford extension.
Yep.
But it feels like the Cook news is maybe the big news. Brandon Beane effectively saying, I'm not telling you anything that's new, but that clip right there where he says there's no reason we can't do it next year, I don't know, Sal. That's a pretty heavy fast forward on that deal.
Yeah, for sure. I think that those words are a bit jarring when you hear it because it gets you to, okay, there's nothing happening this year. But then and further and says he doesn't expect a contract anytime soon. Those are his words, anytime soon. You know, you guys talked about it. He basically, here's how it went. He said that they had talk with James's representatives earlier this offseason. When it became apparent that they weren't going to strike a deal, they pivoted to the players where it was more likely to strike a deal, and then we know that happened with Christian Benford eventually, Will Shakir, with Greg Rousseau, with Terrell Bernard. Now, I do want to point out here, one of the things when he says next year, let's remember, the Bills do have a franchise tag in their back pocket if they want to pull that lever. So Bills still have control over James Cook in some capacity. It doesn't automatically mean that he plays out the final year of his deal. He's going to be free agent and he's going to walk. There are different things here that can happen. And they could also re-sign him at the end of next year, which is right. But it is, I think, the Bills have things at their disposal to make sure they keep him under contract with them.
Franchise tag, I think right now it's $13 million. It's one of the reasons like his ask of $15 is way big, and next year it might go up a little bit more. They have not used the franchise tag, correct? This group, last guy to get it was who?
Cordy Glenn, I believe.
Cordy Glenn. Okay. So
they just used that to trade him, too.
Yeah, and one of the reasons they don't use the franchise tag, Sal, this kind of gets to the Benford conversation. The Bills are being given a lot of credit, and I think justifiably so. They're usually out in front, right? Maybe even to a fault, you want to say. They extended Dawson Knox, and maybe that was a little bit aggressive. But the point is, the Bills are often getting ahead of these timelines. I'm thinking about Brandon Ayuk and what happened in San Francisco last year and how they're maybe in trouble now with that. The Bills don't really often get to these contentious negotiations or these hardball spots like they might be getting into with Cook.
No, I agree with that. And you could also, though, there's a backfire to that sometimes, which is, did you pay a guy too early? Yeah. He didn't perform. You know, some people could say that you did that with Tyler Bass. You did that with Ed Oliver.
Okay.
Right?
Yeah.
I mean, you could debate those things. But there is the danger in that. I think we see that with the Sabres right now in some capacity, where it's great to identify your stars and lock them up. And if they continue to perform, boy, you did a great job. But if you also lock that player up and they don't perform, have had to pay for down the road. The other part of this, where when you use the word contentious, Jeremy, is it's kind of only like that or perceived to be like that right now, or getting there at least, because it's been public by James Cook, right? Because otherwise, I mean, let's be honest, did anybody ever use that word about Christian Benford? We thought, well, what does Benford want? Contentious? We don't know. We haven't heard from Benford. We haven't heard from Beane. In this scenario, which is very different than anything we've gone through with the Bills before, we have one side saying, this is what I want.
Yeah. The other part of that, though, you know, if let's say Cook had not said anything, and we still get yesterday from Beane where he says, we'll see next year. I mean, then we just kind of get to know that the two sides are far enough apart to be in that spot. But, Sal, like, overall, like, it's Benford, Rousseau, Shakir, and Bernard, right? So I've got all the other pieces except for Cook that the Bills have finished the job on. Do you feel like the Bills are identifying, or at least whatever, like starting the launching point here of this is your next core. I mean, to lock up 4 guys on extension in one offseason is some pretty hefty work.
Well, I think a couple things have happened here, guys. 100%, Jeremy. That's exactly what happened. We actually asked Brandon Bean about that a little bit.
And we're losing Sal.
I said, you got me okay?
Yeah, go ahead, yep.
Okay. I said, in fact, I asked him yesterday that not only that, Jeremy, but like if you go back a year ago and you take us through all the guys that they had to move on from, how much did these extensions play a part in the decision-making from a year ago? And he basically said yes. Like he said his answer was his job is twofold, to win now and to win tomorrow. And by tomorrow, that means short-term, no, long-term, and even longer term, right? In this case, a year down the road. They made a lot of the moves they made last year, knowing they identified a certain core and wanted to lock it up. That being said, that core still has to perform. They could identify Terrell Bernard all they want, but if he goes out there and doesn't have the year that they expect, that becomes a different scenario. But last year, they started planning for what they did this year with this core. The other thing is, I think it's very interesting that all of these guys who are talking about getting extensions expire in the exact same year. Like, what they've done here is this is 5 years from now. So they have 4-year extensions for all these players we mentioned. That's this year and 4 more years. I think what they've clearly done here, and I don't think the Bills would ever like say this specifically like this, but I'll say it because I think it's what it is. They are trying to win a Super Bowl in the next 5 years. That's where they have Josh Allen in his prime. That's what this is.
Yeah.
They're identifying this group that for the next 5 years, we need to try and win at least one Super Bowl, but we need to win a Super Bowl because that's what Josh Allen has left. Josh Allen's, 28, right? 29 now, I think he's going to be this year, whatever his age is there. Sign. Now, his extension goes 1 more year beyond, but I don't think that matters to this point I'm making, which is they have identified these specific players and said all of them are here for another 5 years. And that is exactly when we believe we have Josh Allen locked up. Like, we have Josh Allen in his prime to win a Super Bowl.
You know, Sal, how do you weigh, like, I think this is such an interesting argument. People talking about, who might take Ashton Gentry, right, the running back from Boise State, and, should a team like the Raiders, who now took care of their quarterback situation, now they might be that running back away from really being good. And I think you look at the Eagles, right, they make the move for Saquon Barkley, it gets them over the hump, they win a Super Bowl. How do you weigh the timing of when it might actually be appropriate? Like, I don't think anyone's arguing the Patriots are a running back away, so they should go and pay that running back, or the Dolphins, they should just go pay that running back. That's going to be the thing that gets them over the hump. When the Bills have that guy in house already that they haven't paid and they've maximized the value of, how do you look at it in a situation where next year, if he's kind of walks or they have to franchise tag him, like, wouldn't you kind of view the Bills as a team that could pay a running back?
I mean, I think that's very subjective, Nate. I think I would ask you a question, though. Do the Bills think that they are getting over the hump back? I think the answer to that is no. They have Josh Allen. I think that the past results don't indicate future behavior necessarily, but I think the Bills have a pretty good body of work of past results on how they view this position. You had to bring up a great point earlier. The Bills have never paid you said it, Nate. You said this earlier, that the Bills have never paid a running back on a second contract. They've never done it. They've also never spent a first-round pick. Now, they've spent draft capital, including James Cook, a second-round pick. There's no doubt. They believe it's important to have that position. I think the Bills have operated of a sense of, we don't pay running backs that. What's the quote from Joe Shane that got him in trouble, actually, during Hard Knocks? I'm not paying a quarterback $40 million a year to turn around and hand off, right? I mean, listen, that's to me what the Bills' philosophy has been, and that's what they're doing. So I think the answer to your question is, I don't think there is a time for the Bills to say we need to pay a running back to get over the hump. But paying is subjective. What is paying in the case of James Cook? If he wants $15 million a year, I mean, that's pretty elite money for a running back. I don't think the Bills have any issue with paying James Cook, giving him a raise. I think it's how much of a raise the issue is.
Yeah, I'm glad you said that, Sal, because sometimes I feel like we talk about this like it's a binary. They want him, they don't want him. The Bills, of course, have a number they'd be thrilled to have him back at, and there's probably a middle that they might be reluctant to move to but would get to. But, sometimes a player is too stubborn or a team is too stubborn, and these relationships ultimately fracture. From Bean to McDermott, we heard from the head coaches yesterday, GMs as well. I want to get to your conversation with Pete Gwelly as well. But from McDermott, a lot of the story about coaching right now, or coaches, is about the tush push, where there seems to be some momentum that this thing could make it out of the competition committee and could make it all the way to a full vote in the NFL.
Yeah, it's really interesting, the tush push, because especially from McDermott, it's really interesting on this because he's clearly been anti, right? He's talked about the danger, the risk of injury, but yet his team is so good at it. And you would think, man, you'd be the guy that would want to have this. Now, he has never, I think one time this offseason, he's actually come out and kind of said like that. Like, he's never fully said, we're voting against it. That's never happened. But anytime this is brought up, including yesterday, he will get to health and safety, and that's a play that I want to see more data on it with the injury rate and things like that. I hear just from that Sean McDermott wants to vote against the tush push, and to vote to ban it. But he never comes out and fully says that to us because I think to him, it's, he wants to respect the competition committee, and these things have happened before with certain votes. But you're right. This is a really interesting vote that's going to be happening here over the next probably 24 hours or so.
Sal Capaccio joining us from West Palm Beach, live from West Palm, as NFL owners' meetings are going on. This is this time of year. Be down there for a couple days. We had our coach's picture, which was inside as well, and that's exciting. We got to look at everybody's shoes and shirts, and Andy Reid wearing his Hawaiian shirt. But Sal, furthermore to that point, the idea of the tush push and where things are headed. The league is often tweaking things. The kickoff is getting more, permanent status. I always think it's kind of funny here. Things are permanent now because they could just change it the next year if they really wanted to. But what's the other big conversation out of the coaches this week at owners' meetings?
From the coaches, I think it's more on, player safety, things like that, but that's kickoff, right? The kickoff is part of this. I think the other rule is, kickoff and kickoff returns. So we'll see. And I think we're looking at, there's been some momentum, and I said this probably the last few weeks, guys, even though it wasn't on the original docket, it is now. I mean, there's been, from what I was told at the combine by several different people, there was already a lot of momentum to get that touchback to the 35-yard line because they want to increase returns. And, they want to still maintain the player safety and all that. And alignment, nothing big, but they're going to do that too. But that's a pretty much a big deal with the coaches. And then, of course, there's the rules as far as illegal contact and defensive. That should be automatic first down. Brandon Beane told me yesterday he does not believe it should be eliminated. He believes that it should stay on, which are automatic first down for those penalties based on unintended consequences. For example, he said, a team on a 3rd and 5 could just tell their guys to hold, basically. If you're getting beat, just hold. So you want to eliminate something like that.
Yeah. You also had a chance to speak with Pete Gwelly, Bills and Sabres COO. We've seen some clips. We've got a big day coming up at the end of this week, the top-up ceremony, the last piece of steel in the stadium. Where can people find your conversation with Pete Gwelly, and what did you guys get into?
I just lost you for 1 second, Jeremy. Can you repeat that question?
Asking where people can find your one-on-one with Pete Gwelly, and what did you guys ultimately get into?
WGR550.com. The entire transcript of my interview with Pete Gwelly is up, and we got into everything. What do you want to talk about? We talked about the stadium, PSL sales. We talked about events coming to the stadium. We talked about KeyBank Center, what that looks like, development around KeyBank Center, what the vision is for that. But, there's a ton of stuff that Pete Gwelly and I talked about, COO of both the Sabres and the Bills. Let's start with PSL and sales.
Okay. Yeah.
He said 70% of the lower bowl is sold. He said all of the premium seats are sold. The seats are basically, the suites are pretty much, I think he said it was his words, sold out at this point. He said they are on track, he believes, to have everything, done and sold out, by the time the stadium opens. If you are a season ticket holder and you haven't been through the stadium experience, that is what they're doing now, and you will be at some time soon here in the next couple of months, I believe, he said. So, that's the selling part. The construction, like you said, April 4th is the day that the last piece of steel will go in. After that, it's all about everything but the steel and, working inside the stadium and all the other things that go into, making a big, gigantic stadium. That's going to be happening. He said the opening is scheduled really for July of 26, and they don't want to walk in cold for a Bills game, so they're going to have to put an event or two in there, before that, which sparked some interesting stuff on social media from people wondering, well, what event could they have? I talked to them about lacrosse, about soccer, all those things are on the table. Concerts, everything is on the table. But obviously they want to bring major events. But that is one of the things that they'll do is probably have a couple of different things before the Bills season in 26.
Media flag football. Let's have it. Let's go. Right? Why not?
Yeah.
Potential options there. Like maybe there's college football, whatever. You mentioned lacrosse. College, I mean, anything really. You could throw anything for some dry runs of what's going to go in there. So you mentioned PSLs. How about we've talked a lot about uniforms or the next couple phases for the Bills. They're going to say goodbye to their current stadium and go into the next stadium. And to me, that looks like the start of a new era. And I wonder what else they will do as part of that to mark that major transition.
Yeah. So. Uniform-wise, obviously, you guys know it's a big buzzword. 2 words, third uniform, right? Alternate uniform.
Red
Whenever
helmet,
we talk about that,
2 words,
you know that Pete's been, yeah. Well, once again, we asked Pete, and you talked with Pete about this, Jeremy, at training camp, where he was at the forefront of designing the Giants' 100th year anniversary uniforms. He was in the NBA and at the forefront of a lot of the new uniforms. He's very passionate about the uniform conversation. But I will tell you, he said this year will be more about commemorating the final year in the stadium. They're really more focused on what's happening this year at Highmark, and they want to commemorate the moments. They want to commemorate the games and have the special, players and moments that happen in that stadium. So I don't think uniforms are necessarily on the front burner, but he did say that they'll be looking at combinations this year and how that resonates with fans, throughout the year. I wouldn't expect anything new. Maybe a standing Buffalo. I'm saying that basing on, yes, I think they could do that because it's the final year of the stadium. But he did say that they do have things planned that he doesn't want to talk about and he can't disclose right now for the first year of the new stadium when it comes to that. So I know a lot of people are still upset. They're not going to get new uniforms, third uniforms, alternate uniforms this year. I mean, they want to focus on what's happening inside this stadium for the old before they usher in the new basically.
2 events that I think they pretty much said they would like to get them in the new stadium. The draft upcoming some next 2-3 years, and also the return of the Winter Classic. Winter Classic.
Yeah, sorry about that. Sorry. Go ahead.
No, just the draft and the Winter Classic.
Okay,
so 2 potential events.
Yeah, thank you. Sorry about that. It's a lot going on here. Everybody's pulling in. You've never been anywhere you've seen more black SUVs with people getting out of your life. I just want to tell you that right now. All right. So the draft, Pete Gwelly told me that he is in contact with the league on a constant basis to bring the draft to Buffalo. They are sending a group to Green Bay to see how they're doing it. Small market, obviously very similar there. They want to see how they do it. He said they have petitioned and they've asked basically for 2028 or 2029. He added, don't rule out 2028, but he thinks 2029 is more likely because of just all the work they have to do on it and the direction they're headed right now. So I think that's the target right now is 2029, but don't rule out 2028 for the draft. He said, the tone I got from him was, I think this is very much like something that could very well happen for Buffalo over the next few years, which is pretty cool. And then, the other one is the Winter Classic. Now, what's interesting about that is he said, the Winter Classic, you're really kind of a little bit more at the whim of the Bills' schedule, and you can't really predict that. So, yes, they would love a Winter Classic. He even brought up the 20th anniversary of the first Winter Classic, 2008, which would be 2028, returning to Buffalo. However, because you can't necessarily predict with the Bills' schedule, he said maybe a stadium series could happen in lieu of that. Right. So one of those 2 things, and I basically asked him, what are the chances? And he said, excellent. He thinks that this is going to happen.
Yeah, I mean, when you say stadium series, I almost feel like the 2 phrases are interchangeable. I guess the Winter Classic is only the New Year's Eve-ish one, and the rest are just
right.
Like throw it in mid-February. You can go ahead and book that because the Bills are not going to be home in mid-February. So, okay, makes sense.
No, that's right.
All right.
Yeah, and then obviously you have all of that. And, KeyBank Center as well, guys. KeyBank Center is also a really big, topic of discussion for things happening around there. Around the arena, Pete Gwelly is very passionate about what's happening downtown and believes that KeyBank Center is really a big destination point for people to come to downtown, give them a reason to come to downtown. Obviously, the Sabres and the Bandits and college basketball and everything that happens in that arena is what drives it. They really want to help be a part of, even more of a catalyst to building up around that arena. And he said there's a lot of things going on that he can't talk about that, he sees in the future, but also inside the arena. One of the interesting quotes to me, I asked him about the NCAA tournament coming to Buffalo next year, which it is, by the way, for the first couple rounds. He said they want to make Buffalo a college basketball destination. They've had discussions with local teams, regional teams. They want to have national events. So that's really interesting. But that stuff was talked about. And then inside the arena, I said, okay, Jumbotron and roof last year. He said every year they're going to do some things, but obviously, again, things that necessarily he's not being specific about right now. But he said, yes, every year they're going to do some things and they keep upgrading because they really believe in that arena and what it can be for downtown. Same thing with the new stadium coming. The area around the new stadium, that's all still on the table. The Bills have bought some property there. We know that. They own some of the property there. They're still going to be looking at, what could be done around the stadium and, to draw people there even on days necessarily when you're not having a Buffalo Bills game.
Yeah. All right. You can find the full transcript at our website, WGR550.com. Sal, what's on the docket for today at owners' meetings?
Okay, guys, well, I'm about to walk into what we call the AFC Coaches Breakfast. So you walk in here, and there's a table for every AFC coach, and you walk around and you talk to those coaches. Now, Sean McDermott saw that we were all here yesterday, Buffalo Media, so he met with us. He's still going to do this today, but we got most of our stuff yesterday, but I'll still pop over with him as well, obviously. But I think he today is going to do more stuff with some national or other, other local reporters. So you tell me, guys, what would you like? I'm gonna put this on you guys.
All
you
right.
give me a task, all right? Let's do it. Put Sal to work, all right?
Yeah.
I'm going to walk into this AFC Coaches Breakfast. You tell me which coach I need to go up to and what I need to ask him.
I got two answers. One,
Okay.
Liam Cohen, Jacksonville, because he seems like he might be a little interesting. And
Okay.
and past that, my first reaction was to go hang out with Vrabel. Like Mike Vrabel's back.
I saw him yesterday walk by me. It was one of those deals where we made eye contact, and he had just shaken someone's hand, and we were going to shake each other's hand. I was going to say hello, but I was kind of like, all right, I didn't want to interrupt him. He seemed like he was, in the middle. I think he actually was on a phone call. He's doing it. That's why I didn't do it. But I did talk to Sean Payton a little bit yesterday. He is a super high energetic guy. We were talking about the playoff game actually, and the fake punt and all that. It was really interesting. This is a great spot for that. And a lot of the coaches, the executives, they bring their wives here and their families, and they kind of they hang around. They walk around the breakers, during the day, and when you're around, you see them, you can just start talking to them about a bunch of things. What do you want me to ask Liam Cohen?
Maybe give him a second try at Duval.
Well,
I don't know. I don't think that's for me to do in this setting.
How about? Is there another level? I mean, whatever. There's a million. You don't have to do this. It's fine. I wonder what he can do with Trevor Lawrence. Like he did great things for Baker Mayfield. I think Liam Cohen's a sharp offensive mind, and they have a lot of pieces there in Jacksonville. I mean, feels like Trevor Lawrence is a guy that is, whether he's unfairly criticized. I don't think it's unfair. I'm just waiting to see what this. He was supposed to be generational. He's supposed to be like the perfect prospect, and it just doesn't feel like it's come together.
I also wonder too how busy Mike Tomlin's table is going to be because Aaron Rodgers.
Oh, actually, Tomlin went yesterday when McDermott went with the Pittsburgh media.
Oh, okay.
And there was a lot. You guys can find that. There's a lot been written about Tomlin, what he said yesterday about Aaron Rodgers, and he was asked a lot of questions. So good point there, Nate. It was him. Who did I see yesterday? Actually, Andrew Berry, the GM for the Browns, he was going too. So a few of the guys went early yesterday. One thing I like to do, and I'm going to do when I pop my head in here in a minute, guys, is I like to go to the coaches who the Bills just signed a player from. So in this case, the Chargers, Joshua Palmer, and I'll ask Jim Harbaugh, what about his game, what the Bills are getting in Joshua Palmer. So that's something I like to do when I talk to some of these coaches. But there's always some interesting things that wind up coming out of these.
All right. Enjoy it, and grab a waffle for us.
All right, guys, thanks.
Sal Capaccio live from West Palm Beach. Coverage of NFL owners meetings brought to you by Window Nation, the perfect fit for your home and wallet. Visit windownation.com. We'll talk to him again tomorrow. We think it's going to have to be early. We're on the NFL owners' schedules. They're early risers. I mean, they're up already having breakfast. Probably a lot of golf to play. It's some really nice courses while you're down there.